Chapter 904, Analysis. The artisan is suspected to be under the control of a cult or secret organization, yet he's trying to get the hermit's help. Just get the world. Who knows which waters the future is in at the moment and how long it would take to reach there. What's more, the world can teleport. After hearing the hanged man's prayers, Klein subconsciously rebutted his request, believing that it would delay an opportunity, causing unnecessary losses. He then calmed down, believing that with Mr. Hanged Man's attention to detail and experience, it was impossible for him to commit such a simple error, since he believed that he definitely had his reasons for requesting the hermit's help instead of the world. This also means that Mr. Hanged Man has determined that the matter hasn't reached a critical state that requires immediate action. He even wishes to observe further to find more clues and details. Besides, since Ma'am Hermit had offered to provide help in advance, it means that she believes that, for the time being, her region of activity would overlap with Mr. Hanged Man's. If anything really happens, she would be able to rush there at the fastest speed possible. Or does she too have powers similar to teleport? But that's a very low possibility. Klein tapped the edges of the modeled table, believing that he should trust Mr. Hanged Man's experience. Of course, this also included the fact that Mr. Hanged Man hadn't described in detail about his discoveries or areas of suspicion, preventing him from inferring or divining the truth of the matter. As his thoughts stirred, Klein threw the Hanged Man's prayer scene into the crimson star representing the hermit. As he was waiting for Admiral of Stars to reply, he suddenly saw the star representing the sun suddenly contract and expand as it produced stacked layers of prayers. The City of Silver's exploration of the former chief's mausoleum has some preliminary results. Klein made a guess as he emanated his spirituality over. In accordance with his expectations, Little Sun began recounting everything that had happened after the 3 members of the 6-member council opened the former chief's mausoleum. This included encountering the souls of their deceased relatives, the river they crossed which hid countless strange creatures, and how they faced the incomplete mythical creature form of the former chief whose body was covered in white feathers. It also included Shepherd Lovia's separation of a shadow in an attempt to pounce onto the illusory tubes that extended out of the former chief's body. However, she was stopped when Colin Iliad used the Fate Siphon charm, swapping his and the former chief's fate for a brief moment, causing a difference in outcomes. Thin, illusory black tubes, white feathers stained with pale yellow oil. This sounds familiar. Yes, wasn't this the main characteristic in the scene I saw when I divined the abnormality with Azek's copper whistle? And the reason that former chief built the mausoleum was to switch to sequence 3 Ferrymen of the death pathway. As Klein listened, his mind raced, joining the dots together and considering what kind of conclusion he could receive from that. Soon he had a bold guess. The mutation of the City of Silver's former chief had a certain connection with the numinous episcopate's artificial death project. Although this conclusion sounded inexplicable and unbelievable since the City of Silver was situated in the completed isolated forsaken land of the gods, it was a place that could only be entered through certain means via the giant king's court and ruins of the Battle of the Gods. Even the 7 deities couldn't find it or have the power to infiltrate it. However, the numerous similarities made Klein, who was sensitive to coincidences, combine the actions of Shepherd Elder Lovia in the operation and eliminate the other possibilities so as to seriously consider what the 2 seemingly unconnected matters might possibly point towards. From the scene that he received from divination and the experiences of having white feather grow from the pores of the back of his hands when he summoned the failed product of artificial death, as well as the encounter of the 3 City of Silver elders, he began suspecting that the numinous episcopate's attempt might have achieved success to a certain degree. Through a series of sacrificial rituals and the transformation of their own high-sequence beyonders, they influenced death's remains via backward propagation, causing that abstract, illusory uniqueness which represented a deity's authority to generate some form of sentience. This allowed the object that was only a totem and a concept to come to life. Hence, this unintelligent object that couldn't be considered artificial death had begun assimilating the entire ritual. eagerly exerting its influence on lower sequence beyonders of the same pathway. After reaching certain conditions, the object hidden in the depths of the black fog could extend thin, illusory black tubes, establishing connections with the target and draw upon their strength to transform their bodies. And this method might involve the underworld or something special about Death's domain. It could circumvent the force that isolated the forsaken land of the gods and make effective contact with the beings within. Therefore, the shadow that Shepherd Elder Lovia had produced was a bestowment of the true creator. Its goal was to follow the thin, illusory black tubes on the former chief's body and trace the remains of the corrupted Death. Perhaps this was how the mother tree of desire replaced the chained god back then and seized the corresponding authority. Thankfully, the current chief of the City of Silver has a very clear mind. He knew ahead of time to seek out the secret existence backing Little Sun for help. By using the Fate Siphon charm, he remarkably foiled the true creator's ploy. From the looks of it, the two powerful sealed artifacts of the City of Silver are good at purification. They're able to stop the shadow that can corrupt Death's remains. As the fool, I seem to have crossed the true creator once again. Of course, Ammon will be the one taking the blame since the Worm of Time was contributed by him. Through Little Sun's description and relying on his own interference, Klein roughly figured out the hidden conflict that happened during the City of Silver's exploratory operation. Meanwhile, he also gained a first look at Shepherd Elder's mental condition. To Lovia, thin illusory black tubes that lead to the outside world was undoubtedly the key to the City of Silver's escape from the forsaken land of the gods. Therefore, she was very certain of her actions this time, without showing any signs of regret. She would only believe that the chief was the one who shattered that hope. It's not too terrifying to have someone do evil deeds. What's most terrifying is when people who have a martyrish mentality do evil they believe to be right. Klein couldn't help but sigh inwardly. As for why Little Sun knew what happened inside the mausoleum so clearly, it was obvious that Chief Colin Iliad had informed him during a casual chat. At this point, Derek had already recounted how the three elders had retrieved a special sealed artifact. It was a Beyonder characteristic left behind by the former chief that had fused with his bones. The former chief was from the giant pathway, beginning from sequence 9 Warrior to sequence 4 Demon Hunter. The Pheromone potion he consumed corresponds to the Death Pathway's sequence 3. The two Beyonder characteristics mixed together must be weirder and more varied than a single pathway. Together with the added effects of artificial death, the final sealed artifact must be very powerful. Of course, the negative effects will probably be equally powerful. Yes, back when the Black Illusory River was described, the various weird creatures likely corresponded to the underworld. This is similar to the scene I saw in the Berserk Sea. It's also similar in effect to what Miss Sharon's mystical item created. As Klein thought about it, he listened to Little Sun wrap up the topic of the exploration before mentioning the monster known as Shapeshifter. After Derek finished describing it, Klein felt that shapeshifters were very likely Bizarro Banes. He hurriedly summoned a gold coin from the junk pile and did a divination to confirm his guess. With Little Sun's current strength, there's no way for him to head to that city to hunt it. I can only wait until that chief prays to the fool once again or seeks help via Little Sun. Anyway, there's no rush. I haven't found the spirit world plunderer yet. Klein nodded indiscernibly. After requesting Mr. Fool to pass the corresponding information to Mr. World, Derek said that he had enough points and could soon exchange for the Beyonder characteristic for sequence 5 Vampire and complete the 3-party transaction. So he requested that Mr. Moon prepare himself. On the Future, which was slowly cruising across the waters of the Rorsted archipelago. Admiral of Stars, Katlia thanked Mr. Fool and nudged the glasses on her nose. Opening the window to the captain's cabin, she shouted to everyone, "Turn towards Bayam." After issuing the command, this pirate admiral curled the corners of her mouth. She finally had the chance to establish a long-term cooperation with an artisan. But at that moment, she suddenly thought of a problem. If she easily received the help of an artisan, would Frank Lee, who hadn't been able to obtain a sequence 5 potion formula, attempt to make the druid beyonder characteristic into an item to expedite his paused experiments. That's not a good thing. Katlia subconsciously raised her hand and pinched her forehead. On the liner, Klein, who had finished handling the matters, focused on enjoying his trip. Due to the Berserk Sea's abnormal change in weather, the liner he was on board had chosen to take a further and more roundabout sea route that was much safer. Furthermore, it was to dock at a harbor named Halman for the night. Klein didn't alight and remained at a window-side table at the upper-levels restaurant to have his dinner. While waiting for his food, he casually looked out the window and took in the local night skyline. Suddenly, he discovered a suspicious figure with a luggage bag preparing to board the ship. The reason why he appeared suspicious wasn't only because the man was wearing a black overcoat and tall top hat, but that he wore a scarf that wrapped his face, hiding his physical features. All that was left were a pair of eyes. And that pair of eyes were peeled to the ground, preventing anyone from discerning his actual appearance.